A few years ago, in May, the 25th I think, I was at a My Chemical Romance gig with three of my closest friends. I'd been wondering for a while why I didn't seem to belong with my group of friends, but I finally admitted it to myself that day.
The day started as normal. I was late for school just to avoid certain people in the corridors. The weather outside was awful. It was raining and blowing with wind.
I didn't know how to tell anyone, but I knew I needed to. We were waiting outside the CIA in Cardiff to get into the gig. I cleared my throat and I could feel my heart racing. I've always been really nervous about being different, but I knew that if I didn't say anything I would regret it.
I came in through the foyer door. There was no pupils to be seen, just teachers. I signed in late at the front desk. I went through the corridor and up the stairs where no one could throw names at me.
I took a deep breath and said, "Guys, I'm bisexual." They could tell how nervous I was and in turn told me how stupid I was for being so nervous. Nothing had changed, they were still as close to me as ever.
It wasn't so much that I knew she was gay, I just had a feeling when she was quite young, around about 7. And I know most people think that's strange, but I do think a mother's instinct comes into play. And I used to tell people, when she grows up, I think she's going to be gay. When she actually then came out and said she was gay, I said, well, I know, and I have known for quite a long time. And I'm not quite sure if she was disappointed that I didn't yell and rant and rave, because as far as I know, most other parents do. In fact, I know a lot of kids have a lot of trouble with their parents. They get thrown out of the house. People don't understand it. But quite frankly, sexuality is second to happiness as far as I'm concerned. If people are happy, really doesn't matter about their sexuality. And I or none of my family actually have any problem with it at all.
I walked up the stairs fast-paced, missing every other step as I went up to the top floor. I expected a row from my teacher when I got into the class, but she just welcomed me in and told me to sit down. I sat by the table by the window, where all my friends were. I could see and hear the people at the back of the class looking and laughing at me.
I had school the next day, so I got up at about 7 a.m. My mum was yelling at me, telling me I was going to be late. So I ran around my room and the house, throwing everything I needed into my bag as quickly as possible before running out the house and jumping in the car. When I got to school, I was really nervous. I don't fit in much at school as it is, but coming out as being bi is just another thing on top of that. I didn't know who to tell next, so I decided on my good friend who was not at the gig. After confiding in him, I headed for my first lesson, which was English.
I took out my MP3 player, put my left earpiece in my ear with my right one uncovered so I could talk to my friends. In the matter of 5 minutes, the bell rang. I packed up my stuff slowly, just in case anyone was outside my classroom door waiting for me.
My lessons were 50 minutes each. That's 50 minutes for my sexuality to become the talk of my year group. By lunchtime, it was much harder to walk through the corridor without people stopping me and asking me questions. My first lesson back after lunch was maths. Usually I like maths, but today something was different. I sat in my usual seat in the top corner with my group of friends, but something just wasn't right with them. They wouldn't look me in the eye and they barely spoke to me. After about 20 minutes of this, I asked them what was going on, and the answer I got shocked me.
The teacher was walking down the corridor and greeted us with a smile, saying, "Morning boys, come in please." The class went in, apart from the people that weren't so fond of me. I didn't want to go in front of them, just in case they kicked me or anything.
They explained to me that a rumour was going around that I had a crush on one of my best friends. This was never true, but unfortunately because of that, she stopped speaking to me, and after a while we drifted apart. By the end of the day, I'd had enough. I followed my usual route down to the bus stop, and I realised I was being followed by some of the people from the lower years. As they were following me, they started throwing stones, and they were using some very abusive language to mock my sexuality. I sped up, hoping that the bus would be there so I could just go straight home. I was in luck that the bus was there and I could just jump on and go straight home. I never told my mum what happened, and I never really went to school much after that. If I did, I avoided everybody, but I became a part-time attender at best.
I normally sit at the back of the class where I feel safe and no one can bother me. But the people that I hated sat in my seat, and the only seat that was available was the one right in front of them.
There's been plenty of problems surrounding James's sexuality when he used to get picked on in school by all the girls, and I had to stick up for James, obviously.
I hated sitting in front of them. Every single time my teacher turned around to write on the whiteboard, they threw paper at me, they kicked my chair, and this one guy, Luke, kept trying to get my attention by whispering in my ear, but I just ignored it. I finally turned around, didn't know what the heck he was going to say or do to me. He passed me this piece of paper. I didn't want to read it, but he kept looking at me until I did. So I opened it and I said, "Look out, gay boy, we're going to jump you." I was terrified, I didn't know what to do. I kept getting threatened to school, but nothing ever happened. I always used to try and stay with my friends, but they always used to try and avoid me because they didn't want to be in the same situation as I was.
I think living in a Valleys town must have been extremely difficult. She hadn't actually come out at that point, obviously, so it does now, in hindsight, explain a lot of things that were going on. Maybe some behavioural things. I kind of get it now. I get it now. I wish I'd known at the time what the frustration was in school. I can only imagine what must have been said, because I don't know. Just wish people were just more tolerant of other people for who they are and not what their preferences are. You should let people be who they want to be. So long as they're not harming anybody, it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. From Caris's point of view, I just think she's altogether happier. She's given freedom to do what she needs to do. I think the school was a bit too institutionalised then for her. When you get treated like a child, and that just really wasn't Caris at all.
The next lesson was PE. That was the worst. The teachers were basically like the students. I got back to the changing room and there's no one there. My bag was missing and all I could hear was the shower running. I turned around the corner and there was my bag and my 2 missing books. I looked in my bag to see if everything was okay. My books were dry, but my clothes were soaking. I tried to dry them as much as I could under the dryer. I got dressed and didn't even bother going to my next lesson. I didn't even complain to the teachers. I just went straight to the office and told them that I was ill. They phoned up my mother. She took me home and I didn't even bother going back to that school ever again.
James has become a lot more confident being in college, because in school he got picked on an awful lot by all the boys. I think college is more accepting than school, because you can be free.
The transition to college was a much better move for Caris. There were more people with sexuality issues, and I think it's a more grown-up environment, and they're far better able to talk about it amongst themselves. She's got a lot of friends who I know. It's just made such a difference to her whole demeanour, how she thinks about things. I even think she's a bit more tolerant of other people now. And that just makes her whole life much happier. She's definitely happier. And she's got a little brother who loves her, who probably adores everything she says and does.
Well, my favourite thing to do with my sister is have fun, and when she babysits babies we have lots and lots and lots and lots of fun.
Admitting I was gay to my classmates was the easiest thing I've done. They were also accepting, and one of my fellow classmates also happened to be gay.
For me, coming to Merthyr showed me that being gay is nothing to be ashamed of. My friends accepted me for who I was, and Merthyr College is a tolerant place. I feel more comfortable now that I'm accepted for who I really am.
A few years ago, in May, the 25th I think, I was at a My Chemical Romance gig with 3 of my closest friends. I'd been wondering for a while why I didn't seem to belong in my group of friends, but I finally admitted it to myself that day. A few years ago. Oh,